Hello, I welcome you to this video where we want to discuss the concepts of sets. So the question that we have here indicates that a certain school offers French, Chinese, and Japanese classes. A group of students was asked which language they had studied. The following Venn diagram shows the results. So what we can see in this Venn diagram represents the classes that were undertaken by different students studying these languages in French, Chinese, and Japanese. So we can see the numbers representing the elements or the students per class. It says again, how many students studied at least one language? Okay? That is the first part of the question. Then part 2 says, how many students studied French or Chinese but not Japanese? So at least one language, then French or Chinese but not Japanese. Then number 3, one of the languages only. And number 4, neither French, Chinese nor Japanese. Okay, so these statements here have got keywords that we are supposed to understand in order for us to handle a question such as this one correctly. So first things first, we want to find how many students studied at least one language. At least, meaning it is greater or equal to 1. That is what we are considering here. At least is an important keyword. At least one language, okay? At least one language. So we are saying at least 1 means greater or equal to 1. So 1 is going to be considered in our calculations here. We are going to consider those that studied one language, those that studied 2 languages, those that studied 3 languages. That is the meaning of at least. So we start from 1, then going up. That is the meaning of at least, greater or equal to. So greater or equal to 1 subject or 1 language in this case. So we are going to check from what we have in the Venn diagram here. We can say those that studied at least 1 are these 23 studied French only, plus 32 here studied Chinese only, plus the 10 studied Japanese only. So because it is at least, we continue, plus those that studied both French and Japanese, which were 5, plus 20 that studied French and Chinese, plus 7 that studied Chinese and Japanese, plus 3 that studied all the 3 languages. So we have okay, so we need just to counter check so that we ensure that the elements that we are supposed to pick are all indicated here. So we can see that all the elements in here, or the students represented by these numbers, studied 1 subject or more, or simply say 1 subject going up. So we add these numbers and we are going to have 100 students studied at least 1 language. So that is for the first part. The keyword again, it's at least. We move to the second part of the question. It says, how many students studied French or Chinese but not Japanese? So French or Chinese but not Japanese. So all the elements in Japanese class or Japanese language are going to be excluded in our calculations. So for French, we have 23, okay? French only, it's 23, plus Chinese only, it is 32, okay? Now, it is not just for French or Chinese only. We are also considering those that did both. So we are going to say plus 20, the 20 which is for French and Chinese. All the other elements which are part of the Japanese class are not going to be considered. So we simply add this, and we are supposed to get 75, yes. So we are going to have 75 students studied French or Japanese, but French or Chinese, but not Japanese. That is for part 2. Keywords, French, so the O as well as the but excludes whatever is part of the Japanese class. We are going to exclude that. So that is for the second part. Moving our attention to part 3, the question says, how many students studied one of the languages only? Again, one of the languages only. Only is another important keyword, okay? So we are considering those that studied one language only, okay? So from our Venn diagram, we can see that these 10 in here studied Japanese only, okay? Just one language. And so were these 23, okay? Then the others who studied one language only were these 32. So we are going to add these numbers, okay? And this is going to give us 65 students. 65, is it? Yes. 65 students studied one of the languages only. So only, another important keyword. We go to the last part, okay, which says how many students studied neither French, Chinese, nor Japanese. So neither is another important keyword. Neither French, Chinese, nor Japanese, meaning none of these classes. How many students studied none of these languages? They were not part of the French class, not part of the Chinese class, not part of the Japanese class. We can see from the Venn diagram we have these 15 are the students that were not part of the classes mentioned here. So this is going to be the solution to part 4 of the question. So it's important to understand the keywords in a question such as the one that has been given here.